Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, once heralded as the GOP's most promising national star and best chance to dethrone Donald Trump, dropped out of the presidential race on Sunday. Meanwhile, Trump seemed to get very confused at a rally where he blamed Nikki Haley for January 6th. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Well, the weirdo community suffered a major blow on Sunday when, in a completely unsurprising move, one of the most off-putting people on the planet, Ron DeSantis, seen here, waiting for someone to hit a golf ball into his mouth, dropped out of the GOP presidential primary. But say what you will about DeSantis, at least he bowed out in a classy way on Sunday by quoting Winston Churchill in his announcement video.
Winston Churchill once remarked that success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts.
Just one problem, Winston Churchill didn't say that. The International Churchill Society says on its website we can find no attribution for the quote, and it is found nowhere in his canon. Now, I know a lot of people are saying DeSantis could have fact-checked that in one of the books he banned, but that's not fair. To quote Winston Churchill, you can also just Google it. Now, you might wonder how DeSantis' staff could allow a fake quote into a speech, and the answer is they were pretty checked out. In fact, just before the Iowa caucus, the head of DeSantis' super PAC, which was hilariously called Never Back Down, was seen spending most of his time at campaign headquarters on something that was not campaign-related.
Multiple staffers from the headquarters of the DeSantis Iowa operation, their field operation run by Never Back Down, reached out to me and my producer, Abby Brooks, and said that the CEO and chairman of that organization was spending a significant amount of time in those final critical days working on a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
That's right, he was doing a jigsaw puzzle. There was even a picture. We need to do something. Our poll numbers are cratering. You think you got problems? I picked a puzzle with clouds. It's a fittingly pathetic end for DeSantis, who tried to overtake Donald Trump and failed in every respect except for one. There is one thing DeSantis beat, or at least tied Trump at. You see, during Trump's first 8 years as a politician, he proved over and over that in addition to being a serial liar, racist, and con artist, he was also the weirdest man alive. It didn't seem possible for any human being to be any weirder than this flag-hugging, umbrella-ditching, dandruff-brushing, belt-unbuckling, eclipse-staring, VP-kissing weirdo. But then Ron DeSantis came along, America's first extraterrestrial governor, who somehow managed to compete with Trump in the weirdness category. DeSantis stands like he's wearing a backpack full of horseshoes and has the demeanor of a guy trying to hide a zombie bite. I just scratched myself while I was working under my car, working on my brakes. The problem for DeSantis is he doesn't have any of Trump's charisma. I have to agree with Trump on one thing. On a personality level, the man is a meatball. He's only a few years and a few stages on the evolutionary ladder away from Rudy Giuliani. DeSantis looks like someone you'd put in a police lineup next to Rudy Giuliani. It was almost him. Say what you will about Trump, but his voters, the people who go to his rallies, are going because they're entertained. His supporters don't want to hear fake Winston Churchill quotes. They don't even want to hear real Winston Churchill quotes. They want to hear a fake story about Trump meeting Winston Churchill. When I first saw him, I thought he was an old baby. They want to hear Trump gossip about B-list celebrities he met in the 80s and his various comedy routines about toilets that don't flush and rich guys who love rockets. If Trump ever does get convicted of a crime, at least he'll crush at the prison talent show. He's already got material that will kill with an audience of white-collar criminals.
Alphonse Capone, if you smiled at him in the wrong way, he'd kill you. He was only indicted one time. I got 4.
It's like Trump is writing his comedy bits for a prison audience. You know, they got Al Capone on tax evasion. That's a crime that puts you pretty low on the prison pecking order. There's only one thing lower than tax evasion: hiding classified documents in the bathroom. This guy knows what I'm talking about. Not my finest hour, folks. I wish I had shot someone on Fifth Avenue. Then at least I'd have some pull around here. Nobody's afraid of the hiding documents guy in prison. We respect the murderers and the cannibals, but the document guy, not so much. Anyway, where the hell was I? Ugh, right, DeSantis. Anyway, The point is, Trump entertains his crowd. DeSantis is not entertaining. He is both weird and boring. For example, here he is trying to make conversation with a child at a campaign stop in Iowa.
Oh, what is that? An icy? Yeah, that's probably a lot of sugar, huh? Good to see you.
Yeah, dude. It's an icy. Don't narc on him and then shake his hand. Even that kid was like, you suck. You're never going to be president. The only other person I've ever seen talk to kids that way about a treat is my wife after I say it's okay. We'll be at a birthday party, and I'll say, sure, we're having fun. You can have an icy. And then my wife will spot us from across the room, walk over, and passive-aggressively say to me,
that's probably a lot of sugar, huh?
And then I'll say, you know what? You're less fun than
Alphonse Capone.
And then, for the rest of the night, I'll be quietly freaking out about how much trouble I'm in. So DeSantis was weird and off-putting, but aside from that, there's another lesson to take away from his campaign, which is that his obsession with battling so-called wokeness didn't work. No one cared. Because it was all fake, performative BS. And in his cynical pursuit of power, he did real damage, essentially banning books from school by creating a culture of fear for teachers, waging a pointless war on drag queens, arresting black voters in a hunt for non-existent voter fraud, and fighting Mickey Mouse. All so he could finish an embarrassing 30 points behind Trump in Iowa and then sheepishly drop out before Trump could make fun of his high-heeled boots again. Here, for example, is DeSantis trying to criticize liberal cities by telling a very bizarre story about a trip to San Francisco.
I happened to be in San Francisco a month or two ago, and within 10 minutes of me being in the city, I see some guy relieving himself on the sidewalk with number 2. Like, I mean, it's just, I've never seen things like this before.
First of all, you're from Florida. You've definitely seen some things. Second, who's weirder, the guy who on the sidewalk or the guy who refers to as relieving yourself with number 2? It sounds like an alien posing as a bathroom attendant. Good evening, sir. Will you be depositing in the urinal or will you be relieving yourself with number 2? By the way, have you noticed that liberal politicians never talk this way about conservative states? I've never heard Joe Biden slam Florida. That place is a hellhole, folks. It's a hellhole. It's all alligators and strip malls. Everyone's on meth or Miralax. I met one guy who was so high he told me he was going to the bathroom to relieve himself. Gonna relieve himself with number 2. His words, not mine. Who talks like that? But aside from telling bizarre stories about liberal cities, DeSantis also embraced deeply dangerous lies about COVID that very likely cost lives. Studies have found that most of Florida's COVID deaths happened after vaccines were readily available. The registered Republicans experienced a significantly higher rate of excess deaths than Democrats in Florida, and that during the Delta wave in 2021, Florida's died at a higher rate than residents of almost any other state. Now, DeSantis isn't the only person to blame for that, but as Winston Churchill once said, you say you're sorry, but it's too late now, so save it, get gone, shut up. So now that DeSantis is out, Republicans are left with 2 choices, either Donald Trump or a person who's going to endorse Donald Trump in the coming months. No matter how badly he treats her in the coming weeks or months, Nikki Haley is almost certainly going to endorse a man who is now facing so many criminal and civil cases they could turn his courtroom sketches into trading cards. And on top of the criminal cases, he's also more untethered from reality than he's ever been. Over the weekend, for example, he had a very bizarre moment where he confused Haley with Nancy Pelosi and blamed Haley for the January 6th insurrection, even though Haley was nowhere near D.C. on January 6th. Also, nothing he's saying here is true, regardless of who he's talking about. But on top of that, he can't even get the names right.
By the way, they never report the crowd on January 6th. You know, Nikki Haley, you know, did you know they destroyed all of the information, all of the evidence, everything? Deleted and destroyed all of it, because of lots of things. Like Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people.
Why does he keep saying her name? Is he confusing Nikki Haley with Beetlejuice? Not only does he get it wrong, he keeps saying it over and over. He sounds like an undercover cop who keeps saying the wrong safe word during a drug bust. Whoa, 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 I'm not a cop, I'm a drug dealer, just like you, Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, get me out of here. Hey, Chief, Detective Jones keeps saying the safe word, but he keeps saying it wrong. Hey, relax, kid. He's a pro, he knows what oh, they just threw him off the roof. And these people say Biden is in cognitive decline. I mean, sure, Biden's old, but I'd rather a president fall up some stairs than whatever the hell is going on with Donald Trump. At least Biden fell in the right direction, you know? If Trump had fallen down the stairs, he'd try to blame Nancy Pelosi but forget her name and say he was pushed by the ghost of Winston Churchill. I knew I couldn't trust that baby. There was something. No baby should be that old. Prime Minister Benjamin Button, that's what I called him. So DeSantis is out. His performative war on wokeness failed miserably. And now, like the rest of the GOP, he's sheepishly endorsing a man indicted on 91 criminal charges who incited a violent insurrection and is explicitly promising to become a dictator. Maybe Ron is just hoping he can worm his way back into Trump's good graces, and that Trump will make Ron his running mate, a.k.a. his...
Number 2.
This has been A Closer Look. Hey, everybody, thanks for watching A Closer Look. And as a reminder, my brother Josh and I have started a new podcast called Family Trips with the Myers Brothers. We hope you listen. We hope you like it. And see you soon.